When you discover an affair, it's absolutely shocking. It's like a bomb just went off in your relationship. You feel overwhelmed. You feel an entire lack of trust anymore. It's been completely broken and shattered. You're confused, maybe anxious, hypervigilant about what if this happens again. You don't want to be duped again. And you're uncertain as to what the path forward could be in this relationship. So what if there's a way that I could share with you 10 signs that you're on a clear path to healing? What if there's a way that you could truly understand where you and your partner stand in terms of healing after an affair? Hello, I'm Dr. Brian Clements, and I've seen hundreds of couples over the last 25 years get better from this. A lot of people will just choose to divorce, but believe it or not, there are a lot of people that choose to work through it. It's a long road, but it can happen if you choose to work through it. Sometimes couples even feel a deeper sense of connection after they work through all of the issues involved, but it's hard and difficult. I know emotionally you're just completely terrified, uncertain. You don't want to be duped again. It's just such a difficult issue. In this video, I'm going to guide you through a self-assessment that you can reflect upon that will help you understand where you are in your healing process with your partner, whether or not you're actively on a road to healing. I want you to reflect on these 10 signs that you're in a positive healing process and reflect where you're at. By the end of this video, you're going to be able to score yourself to see what level of healing you're actually at and how you're doing. So I want to present some hope to you today, and let's get started. As you go through these questions, I want you to be radically honest with yourself. I'm going to use a scale from 1 to 10. 10 is I strongly agree with this statement, and 1 is I strongly disagree. So you're going to give yourself a score on each of these questions as to where you feel like you're at. But you must be honest with yourself and the reality of your situation as we go through it. It's a process of healing when it comes to infidelity. It's not a one-time deal. It is a marathon. It is not a sprint. It's not a just get over it thing. As we work through these, be completely honest with yourself. Question number 1. You ready? Question number 1 is, my partner has answered all my questions about the infidelity honestly without withholding details. This means that they've completely been vulnerable about what's happened. When it comes to recovering from infidelity, your partner who's committed the infidelity is atoning. They're basically sharing the details. They're being honest rather than staying in secret. This is a very important part, that there's complete honesty. The why is very difficult. A lot of times the partner that cheated doesn't know why, but that's part of the discovery process as you work through therapy. I do want to warn you, be careful of the details, because sometimes the details can be more traumatizing to you and add to the trauma you're already experiencing. For example, details about sexual situations, things that you did or didn't do, just things like that. You want to be very careful about what you want to know and whether you really need to know it for healing. So I just want to put a warning out there, but you do want to write down these details, these questions that you have, and you want to ask yourself, is this important for me to know in order for me to find healing? Sometimes when people are traumatized with this, they can get very stuck on minute details of everything. They feel like knowing every little tiny thing is going to bring them healing and freedom. But I do want you to pause and ask yourself what you really do need to know to find healing, okay? So put your answer strongly disagree, and 10 is I strongly agree. Number 2, my partner proactively shares their daily plans and location and is consistently transparent with their actions and communications. This is an important part of trust building. This can reduce hypervigilance in your relationship. So really what you're wanting to do with this is identify any areas of your life that produce anxiety or fear. For example, if your partner comes home late and doesn't tell you where they're at, you want to know what to do with that. You want to have a plan with, if you're going to be late coming home from work, this is our plan, then you'll call me. So your partner's wanting to alert you prior to the fact of something happening. They're wanting to tell you where they're at, and they're transparent as to where they're at and what they're doing. You want to get obsessive with it, but you want to have that clarity to reduce hypervigilance. You're anticipating it prior to the fact. You're taking away any gray areas of fear, especially after just finding out about this. No surprises. You want no surprises as much as you possibly can. So you're keeping your life very basic, and it's not about controlling the partner that had just committed the offense and the infidelity. It's about building trust and reducing hypervigilance. Once again, mark your score. Strongly disagree to strongly agree that my partner proactively shares their daily plans and we communicate these things. Ready for number 3? Number 3, I feel safe bringing up my emotional triggers without my partner becoming defensive, evasive, or annoyed. The person that cheated does not want to be defensive. They don't want to say, for goodness sakes, I already told you. Why can't we just move on? Why do I have to keep on answering the same question? That is the last thing that the offending partner wants to do. But instead, you want calmness. You want to actively listen and attune to your partner, not get defensive, validate the emotions. If they need to hear, I'm sorry 1,000 times, then say, I'm sorry. But you're also changing your behavior, and that's saying you're sorry. That's more important. But you're saying you're sorry, and you want to create an atmosphere that is trusting, that is safe. A good process of building trust, it's called attune. How to attune to build trust. And it goes through like an emotional stance that you want to take. So I really recommend that video on this step. In trauma therapy, I do a good amount of trauma therapy. I actually use a principle in trauma therapy called the window of tolerance, and I apply it to couples, especially in this scenario where there are triggers that happen, and a trigger could happen. Let's say the partner that committed infidelity didn't tell you that they were going to be late that night, or any kind of trigger. Maybe you drive past a location that the infidelity occurred or something like that. What you want to do is, in the window of tolerance, rather than be triggered and go to hypoarousal, which means that you're angry, you're anxious, you're upset, your fight or flight is kicked in. So once your fight or flight is kicked in, you're not going to have a productive conversation. Or you might go to a hypoarousal state, which is a shutdown state. And that's being like the jaws of a lion just got you, and you just give up and go limp in response to the stressors. Either hyperarousal or hypoarousal ain't going to work. So you really want to stay in this window of tolerance, which means you can downregulate your emotions. It doesn't mean you're a robot. You can still cry and express how you're feeling, but you're really wanting to be able to tolerate what's being said. And John Gottman's research talks about flooding, managing flooding, which is basically getting overwhelmed by the topic at hand and nobody's thinking straight. And technically, it's about 100 beats a minute that you're looking for to not go over. You don't want to be 100 beats a minute or over. Otherwise, you're flooded and you're not going to talk very well. So you can even use your smartwatch or take your heart rate to make sure you're in that window of tolerance. You want to be under 100 beats a minute for sure. The most important thing when it comes to communicating about these things is the offending partner. And if you're athletic, even in the 90s, It's going to be a little different for you, the metric. So once again, score yourself on your ability to bring up emotional triggers and stay safe. 10, I strongly agree that we're able to do this. 1, I strongly disagree that we're not safe to do this, and I can't bring up emotional responses to my partner without them getting defensive or evasive or annoyed. Question number 4. We have begun to discuss the underlying issues in our relationship that existed before the infidelity without it being used to blame me. It's really important that you understand the narrative. This step is absolutely crucial. You want to know your history so you don't repeat it. You may be working with a therapist that will help you work through this narrative, or reading a book. There's a lot of great books out there that will help work through the narrative of what brought you as a relationship to a vulnerability to this issue. So you're not saying it's because you never did this that I committed infidelity, that I cheated on you. That's not the goal. It's not about blaming your partner. It's not their fault that you cheated. 100%. You never want to say it's because of you and what you do that I cheated. You're going down the wrong road. But you're wanting to understand the context of your relationship, the dynamics of your relationship. One dynamic, for example, is couples that are prone to infidelity will sweep things under the rug and not deal with issues, or they have poor boundaries with the opposite sex at work. Maybe they're having private conversations with the opposite sex and they never really intended on an affair, but it just happened because they started talking. It was easy to talk. They can't deal with their issues at home. They can't talk at home, but it's so easy with this new person. It's an illusion though. But talking with somebody you have no skin in the game with, no commitment with, of course, it's always easier to talk sometimes to people that you don't have a history with and that kind of thing. And then romantic feelings begin to develop and all of this. I've heard this story over and over. So poor boundaries with the opposite sex is another example of what to evaluate in this aspect. So you're looking at external stresses in your relationship that may have influenced things, like maybe you're one of them, maybe you were a caretaker to a family member and that's all your focus was, or maybe the focus has been too much on the kids and not on the relationship. You're also looking at relational factors. How do you communicate? Or have you been good friends? Are you holding on to bitterness and unforgiveness in your relationship? So you're just exploring a lot of those things. There's also individual factors that you'll explore that are really important. So once again, 1 to 10. 1 is I strongly disagree that we have begun to discuss the underlying issues in our relationship that existed before the infidelity without it being used to blame me. 10 is I strongly agree that we actually are doing this. If you're not doing it, get into therapy, get a good book. I strongly recommend therapy and working through this. Question number 5. Are you ready? I have been able to identify my top 3 emotional triggers, and my partner demonstrates an understanding and patient response to them. What a great question. Are you able to identify your top 3 emotional triggers, and does your partner actually understand those things? So one emotional trigger might be the phone, the smartphone. Biggest trigger, the texting. What are you doing on your text? I just heard your phone ding with a new text and you're looking at it. And that's a trigger. That's almost always a trigger. Or what are you doing with your phone? Are you open? Do you give me your phone? Are you open to just showing me what it is? I've seen people just dig their heels in on this issue, and it's just mystifying. If you're really trying to build trust, who cares? Give your phone back. If you're all secretive about your phone and you feel like they're invading your privacy, you are on the wrong path to healing. That trigger is just ridiculous to me. You just want to have this openness together when it comes to that. Other triggers could be locations in the city that you live that remind you of where your partner cheated. It could be a movie that you see. Sometimes these triggers are just unexpected. There's a lot of movies with themes of cheating and infidelity and these types of things. So you really want to know these top 3 emotional triggers. Once again, 1, I strongly disagree that we know these 3 emotional triggers. 10, I strongly agree that my partner does know that and I've communicated those. Question number 6. Are you ready? Here we go. Just a few more. I have processed my own pain and anger enough that I can consider the possibility of forgiveness, even if I am not there yet. This is one of my specialties personally. I did my doctorate dissertation on gender differences and forgiving various types of infidelity. And this theme of forgiveness is actually very important when it comes to this issue, as you can imagine. And in my clinical experience, I would see some people who are able to work through it. It still hurts. It's never about getting over it or saying that there's no consequence to what you're doing. There's natural consequences that you're paying, and a lot of pain and hurt is happening. But forgiveness is definitely a process, not a one-time deal. And once your partner starts showing that they are legitimately sorry, they're proving to you that they are trustworthy based on these questions, and they really do want to make this work, even through the triggers, even through the emotional turmoil. It's important that you come to this place where whether the relationship works out or not, let me say that. Forgiveness is for you. And certainly it helps the relationship when you work through forgiveness. But to not forgive is like taking poison or cyanide and saying, I read a book one time and the author said, to not forgive is like taking poison and saying, there you go. So to not forgive is really hurting yourself. It's hurting yourself emotionally, whether this relationship works or not, because you might not reconcile it, but you still can forgive, because forgiveness and reconciliation are 2 different things. Take 2 or more people to reconcile. And that's what this subject is about today. But you can still forgive within yourself. Even if somebody passes away, you can still forgive that person. And by going through all the literature and research, there's so many benefits to forgiveness on an emotional, psychological, physical level. They know that to not forgive actually can correlate with physiological issues, cardiovascular issues, cancer, this type of thing. So you really want to work through your ability to forgive as an emotional process. Starts with a decision to do that, but doesn't mean all your emotions are there. It just says, I'm going to work through this process like I work through grief. Once again, get to your scale, 1 to 10. 10 is I strongly agree that I've decided I can potentially make a decision to forgive. And 1, not at all. I'm not there yet. Okay, question 7. Let's go to the next. Question number 7. We have established and mutually respect clear, firm boundaries, for example, regarding contact with the affair partner or access to devices. I've covered some of this already, but you really want to have firm boundaries. No contact. Person that has cheated must not have any other contact with the affair partner. It's very important that you have clear boundaries about that. I've had some couples where the person that cheated actually has a phone call or a text, and they send it and they watch their partner do that. And however you do it, it just must be clear that there's no contact there, that there are firm boundaries with regards to that. And the phone numbers, delete the phone number, no further contact or calling. It's very important that completely stops. If it doesn't, you're playing with fire and the healing process is completely interrupted. You're not going to move forward if there's not clear boundaries that way. Once again, 1, I strongly disagree that we've dealt with this. 10, I strongly agree that we have dealt with this. Okay, next question. Number 8. Our emotional intimacy and connection feel like they are at times becoming stronger now than they were even before the affair. It's an interesting question. You can move forward with this. People do find healing in this. I want to give you hope that you can. It's a struggle. It's a process. A lot of times as you have these deep or vulnerable conversations about the missing links in your relationship and the hurts, and you're expressing these things, you can start to feel emotional closeness again and emotional intimacy. So this is a sign that you're progressing. You're not going to feel this right away within the first month or two, probably, but pay attention to it. Are you starting to be able to sit together and cuddle, hold hands again, and this kind of thing? That starts to happen over time. So look for this sign. 1, strongly disagree that is happening. 10, strongly agree. Question number 9. Both of us are actively and willingly participating in the healing process, whether through couples therapy, individual counseling, books, or other tools. This is absolutely essential. You have to work in order for this to get better. You do not want to sweep it under the rug and say, I'm sorry, let's move on, let's get over it. You don't want to get over it mentality. Take it from me. I've seen couples that have this get over it mentality. There'll be some affairs or some cheating that happen. And 10 years later, they're wondering why they're having issues. A year later, 2 years, it follows you. It's like trauma. It's like pushing trauma down and not dealing with it. It still comes out in various ways, emotional ways, depression, anxiety, sometimes physical pain if you store things down like that. Be an active participant. Be a strong learner in figuring out everything you can about what set you up personally. What set you up for this? Do you have some deep wounds that set the cheater up for this? Does the person that was cheated on have some deep wounds that they failed to address, but they need to? But do get your personal help and become an expert on the subject of healing. 1, strongly disagree that this is happening. 10, strongly agree that it is. Question number 10. Drum roll, please. Question number 10. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would rate my current level of trust in my partner as a blank. You put the score in, 1 to 10. And is this number higher than it was 3 months ago? So are you able to say, our trust has built, even if it's 1 point stronger? And the healing process can go like this. I'm just going to warn you a little bit. You're going to have some ups, and then sometimes it feels like you're set back again. But then you get back on the road to recovery and participation. And then you bounce back again and you get back on the road to healing. But you're going to experience labile emotions that are going to be up and down at times. But overall, is trust being improved? And you're going to be able to tell if your partner is authentic in sharing with you and showing you that they can be trusted again. They're willing to prove that on a regular basis, and you continue with this process. And maybe it starts with a 0 or a 1, but keep on keeping on. I really encourage you to stay committed to the process of working through this. And we don't always know the outcome, but when you commit to the process, the outcome is usually pretty good. Okay, let's score this. Are you ready? This is how you score this. So you want to take a moment and add up all your scores from all 10 questions. Your total score will fall into one of 3 zones, each suggesting a different path forward. If you scored 80 or higher on this path to recovery, it indicates that you have a very strong foundation for recovery. It suggests that both you and your partner are actively and effectively doing the hard work for healing. Your communications are likely open. You're getting in new rhythms together of life where it starts to feel abnormal that you're not together and that you're not doing things together and changing. So once again, your score of 80 or higher is a strong foundation, okay? If you've scored between 50 and 79, this score suggests that you're on the right path. There's some gaps in some of these questions that you need to address and face and say, oh, we need to work on that part. But you are on the right path, at least, because you're able to answer affirmatively, probably 5 or better on some of those questions. And if you've scored below 50, this is a reality check. It's a warning sign. It suggests the fundamental requirements for healing aren't being met. And maybe there's not true remorse going on. Maybe there's a lot of defensiveness. Maybe there's still some hiding going on. So it says that you're really not on the path. And at this point, you want to have a good conversation, hopefully with the therapist, about some of these things. Or together, you want to have a good, maybe if your score is this low, you might be feeling like you're doing all of this yourself. And your partner's really not that interested. They're just wanting to get over it and hope that you can just move on. But if at the end of the day, even if your partner doesn't heal, you can still heal. I just want to let you know, even if they don't change, you can still be okay. Even if this relationship doesn't work out, and some don't, you can still be okay and move on. It's hard to think that way. It's difficult for some people, especially around financial issues or kids or something like that. But if you come to a roadblock where it's just really obvious that there's no remorse here, then you want to get some professional help. So I hope this helps. If this video was helpful, please click and subscribe. Check out some of my other videos. Thank you for visiting.